180 here. Going back to fantasy, we're talking about some ADP nightmares. And what we mean by that are guys that, as of right now, their ADP is just a little bit too high for us to feel comfortable with. I have some guys that are kind of the low-hanging fruit, chalk picks here. I think you actually will disagree with some of these, but I'm interested to hear. Give me your first ADP nightmare as it stands right now. Again, guys, remember this is pre-draft, so some things may change, but Alex, let's hear it.
My first ADP nightmare is John Brown for the Buffalo Bills right now. He's going right in round 6 or 7, and I'm just not feeling it there with Johnny Bills. Wow, Johnny Bills. That's a pretty good nickname that I just made up. We might have to trademark that one. But he's the wide receiver 2 now in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs coming into town. And there's just not a lot of pass volume in this offense. It's a kind of a gritty ground and pound type of team. Josh Allen isn't slinging the ball for 5,000 yards next season. So John Brown, I don't know. I might be okay with him as like a wide receiver 4, but round 7 is too early. If I'm relying on him as my wide receiver, God forbid if he's my wide receiver 2, but even my flex, there might be some matchups you can play him. But he was a wide receiver 2 last year, and that was without Stephon Diggs taking away a lot of his targets. So, give me Darius Slayton, Hollywood Brown, Deebo Samuel, Brashad Perriman, Brandon Cooks, any of those guys. I would take them ahead of John Brown right now in round 6 or 7, and all those names are going right in that same area. So I just can't imagine a scenario right now where I'm drafting John Brown. But we'll see. Maybe if his ADP gets pushed down, he could be a nice play to stash on your bench. And if something were to happen to Stephon Diggs or something like that, he could be startable. But right now, keep me away from Johnny Bills.
I respect that. He's kind of like a Stephon Diggs handcuff, the way I see it now. No, I like that one there. 7th round. You say it was 7th or 6th?
Right around round 7. I've seen a couple instances where he's at the back of round 6.
Yeah, that's pretty gross there. There's a lot of higher upside names with just more volume in general that I would take around that ADP, even though, we can't take anything away from what Brown did in 2019. But my ADP nightmare right now is Leveon Bell. He's going right now around the RB16. That to me is just way too high. When I look at other names around there, I'd rather take Chris Carson, Mark Ingram, or Todd Gurley over him. And assuming no big names come out of the draft on these teams, give me Miles Sanders or Devin Singletary all day over Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, I'm a big Lev Bell fan. I don't want to sound like I'm trashing him here, but we got to just readjust our expectations for him. The Steelers' days are over. Yes, we love his distinct, patient play style. We can all freak out about how patient he is, but I watched this tape this week. I'm not excited for him at all. His situation, his fit in the situation, even with the Jets making moves to address the O-line, the efficiency for Bell was awful last season. He ran a disgusting 3.2 yards per attempt. His longest run of the entire year. Listen to this. Longest run of the entire year for a running back was 19 yards. He had longer plays on through the air consistently.
Wait.
19.
His longest run was 19 yards?
19 yards. He finished with career lows in pretty much every stat category: carries, rushing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns. He's 28 years old. Out of that prime window for a running back, they start to decline. I believe the number's 24 and a half years old if we want to get specific. But he's out of that prime window.
Oh my gosh.
And we hear the stories coming out all the time, all these headlines. The relationship between Lev Bell and Adam Gase, it's been rocky since the day they signed him. I just see Bell as in a ticking time bomb type of situation. What's to say he has 2 fumbles in a game and Gase doesn't start him again for the rest of the season? It just to me is very scary. And then you take some of the off the field stuff that Bell gets into from time to time. I don't want to sound like I'm trashing him because I really do like the guy. I'm a big fan, but I just don't like him in this Jets offense at all. They don't give it to Bell on the goal line. His workload itself should be solid. If we look at the tier, he's probably getting the most touches, but I just don't believe in the efficiency or the Jets offense as a whole. I think they're going to be just as volatile as they were last season. So I'm taking a name. When I'm sitting there looking at RB2, I'm not looking at Lev Bell unless all those other names are out the board and he's the last one kind of there in that tier. Right now for me at RB16, that's just way too high.
That run, the long run of 19 yards, I can't get past that because Ryan Fitzpatrick had a run for 20 yards last year. Duck Hodges had a run for 22 yards. Jeff Driscoll, 23 yards. Ryan Finley, 24 yards. I mean, Derek Carrier, the tight end, the third string tight end for the Raiders, had a run for 27 yards. So that's brutal. But Here's here's my counterpoint for you though, Steph. His season was terrible last year. You laid it out. Like, Adam Gase is the worst. He wasn't efficient, and he still finished last season as a running back 16, and that's where you said he's going right now in draft. So for me, I see Sam Darnold as, I think it's extremely unlikely that he gets mono again. That's a bit of a hot take. I don't know. We'll see. But I really don't think he's getting mono again. So the offense should be a little bit better
for 4 games
than it was last season. And the efficiency literally cannot go down. It's impossible for him to be worse efficiency-wise than he was last season. And I don't think the usage is going down because, I mean, this Jets offense, who else is the ball going to go to? There's no one else unless they draft somebody, which I don't think many people are projecting them to take a running back. I just don't see his usage going down. So for me, because he's used so much, even if he's not efficient with it and the offense does struggle, I think that's a pretty fair place, and you could rely on. I don't think he's got any potential to be a top 5 running back like the days of old, but I think he's pretty safe to be, a low-end RB1 or a high-end RB2. So I can't see a scenario, barring injury, that Le'Veon Bell's not at least an RB2 in 2020. But, I mean, hey, in our leagues that we're in together, maybe I'll just get to snag Le'Veon Bell, and I can, take him a little later than I want to because I know you're not going to snipe him in front of me. So, it's a fair point. I'm fine taking Le'Veon Bell. He's definitely a polarizing guy, and we didn't get a lot from the Jets last season. So they surprisingly, I think, were 7-9, which every time I say that, I have to fact check myself because
that's wild.
I remember, Sam Darnold seeing ghosts all year. Yeah, they were 7-9 last year, so they were a lot better than they get credit for. And without Brady in that division, they could compete. So I'm cool with Le'Veon Bell, but I totally respect the takes that you made. I think they're fair.
So before we get into the last 2 ADP Nightmares, just want to remind you all, if you all like the show, please subscribe. Please give us a like. Any feedback that you have for us, we really appreciate it. And thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you're liking everything you see here. We're putting out high-quality content, conversation starters, graphics, polls, everything, answering your questions on Twitter and Instagram, so be sure to follow us on there. Pretty active on there every single day, so we'd love to chat with you guys and keep the conversation going outside of the show. But Alex, give me your last ADP Nightmare here before we close out.
I'll be quick on this one because we've talked about him a lot already. It's A.J. Brown in round 4. Like, no way. Watch the earlier piece of the conversation if you want to know what I think about A.J. Brown. He, in the playoff run, it scarred me. I was excited for him. I got him in FanDuel and DFS a lot in the back half of the season. He was always a pretty good price, and he always, paid off. But in the playoffs, 1 catch for 4 yards, 1 catch for 9 yards, 3 catches for 51 yards. That's just not getting it done for me. 3 or fewer catches in 10 out of 16 games, even though those catches normally go a pretty long way. I just can't imagine taking A.J. Brown in round 4. Earlier, I did say I would take him ahead of Devontae Parker. That's probably right where my line is, but I'm taking like a Michael Gallup, a Tyler Lockett, Stephon Diggs, or even Terry McLaurin ahead of A.J. Brown. He will not be on any of my rosters this season unless something drastic changes between now and the season, or unless he falls in drafts. And I'm sure I'm going to scoop him up in some DFS lineups. He's always a good play because he always could go off for 30, 40 points. Like, he's that kind of guy. But for my wide receiver 2, I want something a little bit more consistent, and I think he's a great talent. But for fantasy football, he freaks me out, man. So you can have A.J. Brown all day as long as you leave me Le'Veon Bell in round 4.
I just feel like the volume is going to go up. Like, you can't look at what they...
It probably will. I think you're right. Yep.
But, I'm with you, though. It's still... That ADP is a little bit scary. I'd probably go other ways there, just looking at that. I had Metcalf and McLaurin over Brown. I am with you on A.J. Brown to a point. The last name, and I can't wait to poop all over this player. It's Will Fuller. Alex, our history with Will Fuller is terrible. For all of you guys who don't know, we're in a league called Sunday's Finest. It is a keeper league. It's been one of our longest running leagues, and that's really where Alex and I first started going head-to-head. Shout out to all the guys listening from Sunday's Finest.
Hey.
Alex, last year I gave you Will Fuller for 1 week when he went off for 50 points. Ever since then, I've just been out on the guy. I don't want to touch him. Every time I'm in a draft, I look at the names around him and I go the other way. Like, I'm in a mock and then I see Marvin Jones there. Like, we just talked about him, how slept on he is.
Love Marvin.
I'm taking Marvin Jones a billion times out of a billion over Will Fuller. I see names like Christian Kirk there. Tyler Boyd is there. I'm going with those guys over Will Fuller every single time. And I have a pretty mind-blowing stat to just illustrate how injury-prone, how many games Will Fuller missed. So he's played 4 seasons, so that's 64 possible regular season games. Guess how many games, Alex, over the last 4 seasons, how many he's missed?
Oh my gosh. So 64 potential games. How many has he played?
How many has he played? How many has he missed?
Okay, I think I'm just going to half it. I'm going to say 32 and 32. So maybe, what is it, Steph? Is that close?
It's actually pretty close. He's missed 22 games over the course of 4 seasons.
So maybe we should start calling him. Maybe we should start calling him Will Haffer.
Oh, I
mean,
see it.
Dude, we're bringing not only hot takes, but hot nicknames today. We got Johnny Bills, running routes with Josh Allen, and we got Will Haffer playing half the season every year.
Oh, my gosh.
So the dad jokes, the dad nicknames will keep coming, no doubt. But that's crazy, man. You can't rely on this guy ever.
No, on average,
ever.
You're losing him for 6 games a season. In those 10 remaining games, you're hoping that he blows up. I mean, he's still boom bust within those 10 games that he's going to play every season. Hopkins leaving the offense certainly hurts. I think we'd all agree with that. I don't believe in David Johnson as a fit for the Texans, so I do think the run game will suffer. And at some point, I think the injuries with Will Fuller are going to affect his most valuable asset, which is his speed. Like, you have enough issues in there. It's going to hurt every time you're going to run. Like, that's just how the human body works. I think we've all experienced that, pro athlete or not. But, I mean, do you want your flex guy to be one you plug in there, hope the Texans are down late, and Deshaun Watson sees Fuller out of the corner of his eye in the back of the end zone for a 40-yard reception? Or would you rather just safely plug in Christian Kirk, who's going to be a part of that offense? There's going to be plenty of volume, and he's not going to go out for 6 games. Like, it's just, to me, I'm not going to have Will Fuller probably ever. Like, honestly, from this point on, I'm not trading for him. I'm not even going to fall for the waiver trap. I'm not, dude, I'm all out on this guy.
It's tough. It's interesting because we talked about you giving him to me for that 53 whatever point week he had, and that honestly hurt me too, because I then was so biased towards wanting to play Will Fuller because I thought there was he's got that upside, and I got burned time and time again.
That's how he pulls
Not
you
only
in.
was he inconsistent when he played the full game, he left the game early and put up a 1-point performance for me. I actually was able to start him. He had, I think, one other good game the entire season. It was against my Colts. He had 7 catches for 140 yards, and I specifically remember in that game, every single time Will Fuller got the ball, he would hold his hamstring and get up limping, and I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. And he'd limp his way back to the huddle and then run another 40 yards down the field and do the same thing again. So I was a nervous wreck with Will Haffer all season long, and I agree. I'm not touching him.